Really? Oh, well, this is awkward. Look, you can't possibly expect a being of my age to go through life without a blemish every now and then. You know, they say that you're supposed to grow out of certain things, but apparently pimples are not one of the... What is this? What is going on? What? Oh, bloody bones! I forgot about the mystery meat pie in the oven! Pardon me! Good evening, ghouls and ghosts, and welcome to Spooktober on the Netflix Knowhow. I am the haziest of the hags, Skelemundo, and today we have The Mist. No, not that one. That's the one. Did you know they made a television adaptation of Stephen King's novel just last year? Because clearly you didn't, because it was cancelled after only one season. Shame on you. All of you. Anyway, The Mist is about a sleepy little town where nothing terribly exciting ever seems to happen, and then one day, a mysterious mist rolls in and starts killing everybody. Now, while that is what the show is about on a surface level, in reality, The Mist is actually about shitty humans. Sometimes I wonder why I left that mouth-breathing horde behind me, and then I see things like this and I'm like, oh, that is why. I mean, just look at the way that the series kicks off. The main story follows a family and their young teenage daughter, and she goes to a party one evening, and wouldn't you know it, she gets raped.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Thank you, Ron Burgundy. I could not have said it better myself. The story is pretty dark and messed up to begin with, and this is before the mist even rolls in and starts murdering people to death. But I like the situation that the mist creates, because on top of the trauma and the stress that the characters are already feeling, they are now trapped in an incredibly extraneous circumstance. There are 3 different plot lines and groups of people that the story follows over the course of the show. The first is a group of ragtag individuals who sort of found each other at the police station and are now trying to navigate their way to the mall, where the father is searching for the rest of his family. The second is a congregation who have found themselves holed up at the church and led by the local priest. The third is the largest group that find themselves trapped at the mall, and together they must find a way to make some sort of coherent civilization out of their plight. I liked that each different group seems to be representative of a sort of social dynamic. This small group of ragtag people running through the mist are representative of a somewhat dysfunctional family with major trust issues, but they must learn to rely on each other over the course of the show. While they may not be the most reliable people, they must learn to trust and care for each other if they want to make it through the mist alive. The church group represents the sector that is blindly faithful and is looking for answers to the mist, even if those answers may be dark and do not hold any weight. The mall is representative of a crumbling society that is on the verge of anarchy, and you could just see them devolve into their basic, most animalistic instincts. All 3 of these plot lines and the show overall are held together by strong themes of tribalism, corruption, distrust of one another, and a general feeling of human awfulness. In some ways, it feels like if Mad Max were made to be a series of horror movies instead of action-packed post-apocalyptic thrillers. There is a quote from the movie that really stuck with me, that civilization is only 9 miles away from anarchy. And I think that is a very good way of looking at the situation and how things devolve for everyone. The series is 10 episodes long, with the final episode being titled The 10th Mill, which I think is a very clever way of showcasing how everything falls apart and how the chaos slowly envelops all of them, and it's very well done. People slowly become more awful and more desperate and more maniacal as time goes on, and it becomes more painfully obvious that help is not coming and that resources are dwindling lower and lower. Bad people end up becoming even worse than you could possibly imagine, and even characters that are good in their hearts succumb to the most disgusting of evils. No character is spared from the blanket of the mist, and slowly everyone's deepest, darkest urges and secrets are revealed in the end. Even the father figure, who is perhaps the most wholesome and pure in the entire show, does succumb to the darkness within him, and it is quite disturbing and sad when it does, much to my delight. People lie, people steal, people cheat, and they even become more and more willing to kill one another for their own selfish, horrific gains. The mist robs them of all of their good intentions and leaves them with only the nastiest and most disgusting elements of humanity. It feels like the apocalyptic events described in the Bible of Judgment Day, and every single one of them are failing horrendously. You humans really are a terrible bunch. I'm not quite sure who left you in charge of anything. As for the physical mist itself, I like the concept of it, but it's a little bit inconsistent in execution. The mist is supposed to know you and be aware of your deepest, darkest secrets, and the methods by which it kills are supposed to be related to that. While I will admit that some of the deaths are gleefully dark and twisted, a handful of them are also quite generic and feel somewhat lazy. I get that some of the characters we do not know personally because they are not focused on in the show, but still, it would not hurt to give them some sort of unique death. The Mist also has a tendency to kill some people while sparing others, and I don't fully understand the logic behind it. I feel like the intention was that the Mist only killed the ones who are corrupt, who have the darkness inside of them, and left the ones who are pure and have suffered the most already. But this doesn't exactly hold up, because some characters who survived in the Mist for extended periods of time earlier do not survive later, and I'm not entirely sure what that is supposed to mean. Perhaps it is because with enough time they succumbed to the darkness, but if that is the case, it is not quite clear. And while the Mist is the creepy MacGuffin that drives the tension of the show, it actually pales in comparison to the awful, terrible things that all of the humans are doing to each other. Honestly, I would much rather take my chances in the Mist than with the crazy bunch trapped in the mall and in the church. Now, as morally disgusting and horrific as the show and the characters are, it does suffer from two main problems. One, it's just a little bit slow. While the plight of the characters and the situation they are in certainly feels urgent, the pacing of the show does not. It certainly has a habit of taking its sweet time, and there are a few places where the show, I feel, gets a little bit too philosophical and too talk-heavy. There's an old adage that actions speak louder than words, and I think it would have been better just to let the actions of the characters speak for themselves. Really, the show and its events feel just a bit drawn out, and it very easily could have been condensed into about half the runtime at 5 episodes. It would have helped to improve the pace of the show and really put on display the rapid mental and moral degradation of the characters. And number 2, as I mentioned before, the show is only 1 season, and it is not meant to be. When you get to the final episode and the final moments of the series, it leaves off on a massive cliffhanger that is now never going to be answered because they're not making it anymore. Now, I want to be clear, this is not a problem with the show itself, but more a problem with the way that television series are produced. The way that the industry works. A television series is made to run for as many seasons as you can possibly milk out of it, and I think that is a mistake. It requires that shows be constantly left open and never be given a solid ending unless they are planning way in advance that this is going to be the stopping point. Now, my question with this show is, could it have been made to fit into 1 singular season? I mean, think about it. It is based on a novel by the legendary Stephen King, and the novel presumably has an end to it, therefore the show should also have an end. Could the events of the book have been fit into 1 strong, gleefully bleak season? I get the feeling that it could have, especially considering that the show, as I mentioned before, does feel drawn out and stretched a bit thin. Given those two weak elements though, I still feel that the show offers a horrifying and twisted look into the fragility of human nature and civilization as a whole. It does not feature a great many jump scares, but it makes up for that with a terrifically bleak and depressing atmosphere that never lets up. It is a show without happy characters or happy endings, and that is something that I am sorely lacking in my life. It will make you simultaneously afraid and ashamed of your fellow human beings. You may be keeping your dark and twisted secrets hidden from everyone else, but no one can hide when the mist rolls in. Bones up. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. So the mist is a bit of a slow burn, but once it gets going, it's just really dark and twisted. I loved it. It might be a bit too bleak and depressing for some people, but that's my jam, man. I don't think they make enough stuff like this, so I really appreciated it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and share it with all your friends. You can also head over to Twitter and over to Facebook and follow me on there. And as always, if you want to know your spooky flicks, you know where to click. Happy haunting, everybody. See you next time.